Long before the pyramids, before the rise of kings, and long before history was written in stone, there were civilizations that thrived and then vanished. No warning, no clear trace, only questions left behind in the dust, somewhere beneath your feet. A city might still be sleeping, and the story it once told might just change everything we know. This is the story of the lost civilizations, the forgotten worlds that existed and then disappeared. Their knowledge, their power, their gods, all gone, but not completely, because now archaeology is waking them up. Göbekli Tepe, humanity's first temple, 12,000 years ago. That's 7,000 years before the pyramids, before writing, before the wheel. In southeastern Turkey, buried under layers of sand and soil, lies Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known temple on Earth. Discovered in 1994 by a local shepherd and excavated by stunned archaeologists, Göbekli Tepe is not just old, it's impossible. Massive stone pillars, each weighing up to 20 tons, arranged in giant circular enclosures, standing upright in what looks like a sacred formation. And carved on those stones, strange animals, headless humans, symbols no one has fully decoded. How did a society of hunter-gatherers, people with no farming, no cities, no wheels, build something this advanced? Who were they? And more importantly, why did they bury it? Yes, Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried, covered by its own builders, as if they wanted it hidden. Why? Was it sacred, forbidden, or simply abandoned by a world that no longer needed it? One thing is clear, this place rewrote human history. Until its discovery, we thought religion came after farming and settlements, but Göbekli Tepe flipped that idea upside down. Because this temple existed before farming, maybe it wasn't farming that led to civilization, maybe it was belief. The Indus Valley civilization, the vanished cities of India and Pakistan. In the northwest of the Indian subcontinent, in what is now Pakistan and Western India, lies the ghost of a forgotten superpower, a civilization so vast, so organized, and so advanced that for decades, historians couldn't believe it had ever existed. This was the Indus Valley civilization, also known as the Harappan civilization. It flourished over 4,500 years ago, around 2600 BCE, at the same time as Egypt's pyramids and Mesopotamia's empires. But unlike those civilizations, the Indus people left behind no grand temples, no statues of kings, and no bloody stories carved into stone. Instead, they left behind something far more mysterious, a network of perfectly planned cities. Cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, built with grid patterns, central drainage systems, multi-story homes, and even standardized brick sizes, all across hundreds of miles. Imagine that. Every brick in every building, the same shape, the same size, across a region bigger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. Who were these people? How did they organize such a massive, peaceful urban society? Because here's the strange part. In all our discoveries so far, we have found no evidence of war, no armies, no weapons, no kings. It was a civilization built not on conquest, but on order. They had marketplaces, public baths, granaries, and perhaps the earliest examples of municipal governance. They even had a system of writing etched into seals and tablets, but that script has never been deciphered. We don't know what they called themselves. We don't know what they believed. We don't even know what led to their collapse. Sometime around 1900 BCE, these great cities began to empty out. People migrated. The urban planning stopped. The streets filled with dust. Some believe it was climate change, a shift in monsoon patterns that dried up the mighty Saraswati River. Others suspect economic decline, or perhaps a breakdown in trade with Mesopotamia. But the truth is, we still don't know. What we do know is this: the Indus Valley civilization was one of the most sophisticated and peaceful societies of the ancient world. And then it vanished, silently, completely, leaving behind only ruins and questions. The Olmecs, the mother civilization of the Americas. Long before the Aztecs, before the Maya, there was a mysterious civilization deep in the jungles of southern Mexico. A civilization so old and so influential that archaeologists today call them the mother culture of all Mesoamerican civilizations. They were the Olmecs, and their greatest legacy? 17 massive stone heads, each carved from volcanic rock, weighing up to 40 tons and staring out with haunting, lifelike faces. Who were these people carved into stone? Warriors, rulers, gods? No one knows for sure, because the Olmecs left behind no written history we can understand. They had a writing system, that much is clear, but to this day, no one has deciphered it. Their civilization began around 1200 BCE, centered around cities like San Lorenzo and La Venta. These were not tiny villages. They were full-scale ceremonial cities with pyramids, ball courts, and complex religious rituals, and they had technology. The Olmecs were among the first in the Americas to create rubber, to engineer drainage systems, and to use massive trade networks stretching from central Mexico all the way to what is now Costa Rica. But it's the stone heads that truly define their mystery. Each head is different. Different helmets, different expressions, some even with broken teeth or squinted eyes, as if portraying real people. But why make them so big? And why go through the effort of dragging these volcanic stones from mountains nearly 50 miles away without wheels? We may never get a full answer. But here's what's eerie. After centuries of growth and influence, the Olmec cities were suddenly abandoned around 400 BCE. Temples were left to crumble, statues were deliberately buried, and the jungle took back everything. Just like that, the mother of Mesoamerica vanished. No final battle, no clear collapse, only silence. Nabta Playa, the forgotten astronomers of the Sahara. In the middle of the Nubian desert in southern Egypt, far from the Nile and even farther from the tourist maps, lies a dry, desolate place called Nabta Playa. But 8,000 years ago, this was no desert. This was a lush green savanna, a seasonal lake surrounded by people who hunted, gathered, and looked up at the stars. What they built here is almost beyond belief, because long before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, before even recorded history, these people constructed one of the earliest known astronomical observatories in human history. Massive stones, carefully arranged in circles, lines and pathways, aligned perfectly with the summer solstice. Some point to Orion's belt, others to Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. This was not just random rock art. This was science, this was knowledge, this was ancient astronomy. And the builders, they were cattle herders, nomadic people who returned here during the rainy season and built stone alignments that still stand today. No one knows exactly what they called themselves. We have no texts, no cities, but we have the stones. And they tell us one thing: these people understood the sky. Even more fascinating, some archaeologists believe that the religious and astronomical traditions developed at Nabta Playa may have influenced the later culture of Pharaonic Egypt. Think about that. A forgotten stone circle in the Sahara might be the spiritual ancestor of the Great Pyramids, and yet, like so many other ancient achievements, Nabta Playa was eventually abandoned. The rains stopped, the savanna dried up, and the desert returned. Today, the stones still stand, silently watching the stars, a forgotten monument to the people who first looked to the heavens and tried to make sense of it all. The Nabataeans, masters of stone and sand. In the heart of the Jordanian desert, surrounded by sandstone cliffs and scorching heat, lies a city, carved, not built. Its temples, tombs, and halls not made of stone blocks, but sculpted directly into the mountain walls. This is Petra, and it was the capital of the Nabataean civilization. But who were the Nabataeans? They were once nomads, desert traders who knew every inch of the Arabian sands. But around the 4th century BCE, they did something remarkable. They built a kingdom in the middle of nowhere and turned it into the center of a global trade empire. Frankincense from Arabia, spices from India, silks from China, all passed through Petra. And what did the Nabataeans do with all that wealth? They carved magnificent facades like the Al-Khazne, or the Treasury, an icon of ancient architecture, rising 130 feet tall, straight out of the red rock. Tombs with columns and crowns, temples with stairways that led nowhere but sky. But they didn't just master stone, they mastered water. In one of the driest places on Earth, the Nabataeans created a network of dams, canals, and underground cisterns that captured every drop of rain and stored it for months. It allowed them to survive and thrive where others would have died of thirst. So what happened to them? By the 1st century CE, the Roman Empire had arrived. They absorbed Petra, built their own roads and theaters, and the Nabataean identity slowly faded into history. Then came earthquakes, trade routes shifted, and Petra was abandoned. For over 1,000 years it disappeared until a European explorer rediscovered it in 1812, led by local Bedouins into what they called the Rose Red City, half as old as time. Today, Petra stands as one of the world's great archaeological wonders, a lost city, a carved memory, and a reminder that even in the harshest deserts, civilization can bloom. The Hittites, lost kings of the Bronze Age, once upon a time, they stood toe-to-toe with Egypt. They had iron weapons, mighty chariots, and an empire that stretched from Turkey to Syria. And then, like smoke in the wind, they vanished. They were the Hittites, one of the great powers of the Bronze Age, and for centuries, no one even remembered their name. We first heard of them from Egyptian records. Pharaohs described them as powerful enemies, formidable, organized, dangerous. But who were they? The answer came in the 19th century when archaeologists discovered the ruins of Hattusa, the ancient Hittite capital. There, buried beneath centuries of dust, they found palaces, temples, archives, and thousands of clay tablets. Those tablets told a different story, a story of kings and queens, of treaties and diplomacy, of war and peace. The Hittites weren't just warriors, they were bureaucrats. They had law codes, international treaties, and a system of government that rivaled any in their time. They spoke an Indo-European language, worshipped a pantheon of storm gods, and built their cities with cyclopean stone walls that still stand today. Their most famous moment? The Battle of Kadesh, around 1274 BCE. The Hittites, under King Muwatalli II, faced off against Egypt's most legendary pharaoh, Ramses II. It was one of the largest chariot battles in history, and though both sides claimed victory, the result was a draw. But what came after was even more surprising. Instead of more war, the two empires signed a peace treaty, the first known international peace agreement in history. A copy of it still hangs in the United Nations building today, but not long after, the Hittites were gone. By 1200 BCE, their cities were burning, their writing stopped, their empire collapsed. Why? Some blame the Sea Peoples, mysterious raiders who destroyed civilizations across the Mediterranean. Others think it was internal rebellion, famine, or simply the domino effect of a collapsing world order. Whatever the cause, the Hittites disappeared so completely that for 3,000 years, no one even remembered they had ever ruled. The Minoans, lords of the Lost Island. In the blue waters of the Aegean Sea, on the island of Crete, there once lived a people who danced with bulls, painted flying dolphins on their palace walls, and built one of the most advanced civilizations the world had ever seen. They were the Minoans, Europe's first true civilization. Rising around 3000 BCE, they built massive palaces like the legendary Knossos, filled with courtyards, storage rooms, staircases, and plumbing systems that would put many later empires to shame. They had writing, Linear A, still undeciphered. They traded across the Mediterranean, and their art? It wasn't about war or conquest. It was vibrant, joyful, filled with flowers, sea creatures and ceremonial rituals. It seemed like paradise. And yet, one day, it was gone. What happened? Many historians believe the answer lies in a cataclysm, a massive volcanic eruption on the nearby island of Thera, today called Santorini. Around 1600 BCE, the volcano exploded with a force stronger than almost any eruption in human history. Tsunamis followed, ash clouds blocked the sun, crops failed, trade collapsed, and the Minoans, once masters of the sea, began to vanish. Their cities were abandoned, their influence faded, and soon the rising power of the Mycenaeans from mainland Greece took their place. Some believe this story is the origin of the Atlantis myth, a beautiful island civilization wiped out in a single day. Collapse. When greatness crumbles, they built cities out of stone, they tracked the stars, they traded across continents, and then silence. Time and again, history shows us the same pattern. A great civilization rises, and then it disappears. But why? There's no single answer. Because collapse isn't a moment, it's a slow unraveling, one thread at a time. For some, the skies turned against them. Climate change, whether natural or human-made, has ended more civilizations than war ever has. The Indus Valley may have fallen because the monsoons shifted. Nabta Playa dried up when the rains stopped. Then comes disease. With trade and travel comes plague. Some believe the great cities of Mesoamerica were weakened by waves of sickness long before Europeans arrived. Others fell to the blade. Invasion, war, conquest. The Hittites were swallowed by the mysterious sea peoples. The Minoans may have been overtaken by the Mycenaeans, but sometimes it isn't nature or war. Sometimes it's just decay from within, corruption, economic collapse, a broken system that can no longer feed its people or protect its borders. And sometimes it's all of these, all at once. A volcano erupts, the crops die, enemies invade, and the gods stop listening. And suddenly, the people leave, and the jungle takes over. Collapse isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, so quiet we don't even realize it's happening until it already has. Rediscovery. What the Earth still remembers. For centuries, these civilizations were just rumors, whispers in ancient texts, legends passed down through generations. But today, archaeology is turning whispers into voices. With satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, and DNA analysis, we are uncovering lost cities once thought gone forever. Beneath the sands of Egypt, we find Nabta Playa's stones still aligned to the stars. In the jungles of Mexico, LiDAR scans reveal Olmec roads and cities hidden beneath the trees. Underneath Pakistani farmlands, the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro still sleep, brick by brick. Göbekli Tepe, once unknown, is now being excavated year after year, and each stone tells a new secret. Every discovery challenges what we thought we knew about time, about technology, about ourselves, because the further back we look, the more we realize how advanced our ancestors really were. They weren't primitive, they weren't lost, they were human, just like us, curious, creative, fragile. And maybe that's the most important lesson, that no civilization is immune to collapse. Not the Harappans, not the Minoans, not even us. The world changes, nature shifts, systems break, and history, even the greatest parts of it, can vanish almost overnight unless we remember. The silence that speaks. We walk through the ruins, we touch the stones, we read the scripts we still cannot understand, and yet we feel something. These were not just dead cities, they were dreams, entire worlds built, lived, and lost. Their gods may be gone, their names may be forgotten, but their stories are still here, etched in rock, buried in sand, waiting to be heard. Because civilizations may fall, but stories live on.